All right, everybody, we are back from our short little break. We ran to the restroom, got you a little snibble, fresh cup of coffee, water, Bloody Mary, mimosa. It is Sunday here. Adult beverage. It's 12 o'clock. You're okay to drink on a Sunday. It's 5 o'clock somewhere, but we've got a very special guest ready to jump on here. Kind of a surprise to most of you. Didn't announce this earlier on. Reached out to my buddy and long time note trader, my buddy Doug Roberts. Doug, are you there, buddy? Oh, you're sitting in the car today, huh? Going grabbing the kids? Yeah. And let me make sure you get your hang on, unmute you. Say something, Doug.
Yeah, but church ran over a little bit today, so in the car.
That's okay. That's all right. Good stuff. You are got your Christmas beard ready to roll.
Dude, you see it's super trimmed up right now. I had to meet with an old capital partner last week, and he doesn't like the beard or the tattoos, and so I had to get about 4 inches taken off of it. I really had this thing Santa Claus out when I came to see you the other week.
Yeah, it looks sharp, dude. Looks sharp. So for those that don't know you, Doug, why don't you talk a little about some of your experience and kind of how you got, kind of how we met? I guess would be a good way to kind of start off. We've known each other for almost a decade now, haven't we?
Yeah, I think, man. I owned a mortgage company from '98 to about 2008. 2008, we shut it down like a lot of folks. Kind of putted around for a year and ran into an old guy that I used to do a bunch of mezzanine loans for at the golf course. And I said, "What are you doing now?" I didn't have any idea what I was going to do. And he said, "Oh man, we're just buying, pools." And he was one of the guys that started shorting the market back in 2008. So he had made a whole bunch of money. He kind of introduced me to the business. So in 2009, I started doing it. And, back then, and I miss these days, I know I reminisce with you too much about this, but it used to be such a there wasn't a lot of us. You could count on two hands the number of guys and gals that were really, really doing this business. And the number of, there was I knew 10 guys and gals that did what we do. I knew 20 asset managers, and there was only 10 of us calling on those 20 asset managers. It was a different ball game. Pennies on the dollar instead of dollars on the pennies. But so I've been doing it since then. When I first got into the business, I focused primarily or solely on non-performing. Back then, my only real model was to buy as cheap as I could and sell the loans as is. I didn't have any type of, hey, we're going to take them through this process and this process. It was, I can buy them at 8 cents. Everybody else is going to pay 12 or 15. So I would try to sell most of my stuff, even sometimes at the closing table. I mean, that's, this story, Scott, but the first deal I ever did, we bought it for 9 cents and sold it for 19 cents and didn't even have to fund because we wrapped the person buying the loans from us wanted to close faster than I had to buy from the seller. Back then, that was, not everybody could find this kind of stuff. So did that for about, till mid 2011. My business partner, Sasha Patton, passed away. He's the S in DSRE. When Sasha passed away, we had just closed on a really, really large pool. I really didn't know what to do. I didn't have the interest in the asset by asset, treating, you buy 500 loans and it's really not a deal. It's 500 deals where I don't want to have the staff and didn't have. One of the cool things that you provide to your students and your whole network is everything that it took this decade to figure out. Like they just have this, we didn't used to, for one, there wasn't all these resources. There didn't used to be, some of these specialty servicing companies weren't even around back then. I don't think. If they were, I didn't know about them. We didn't know about guys like Franco. I didn't know about everything is such a, on a platter for everybody now, that we just kind of Zillow our way through things and cold called realtors to do free BPOs and, just kind of. So when Sasha passed, I bought his interest in DSRE, took on another partner, and my partner now, his only interest was in performing debt. So we switched from non-performing to performing. And that's pretty much all we mess with, you know. And the pricing on that stuff has gone up so much. And now I'm scared of buying lease purchases, and you know, it's weird where the market is now.
Yeah, it totally is a different. It was a wild west back 8-9 years ago, and now it's
no
much
rules.
more. Yeah, we actually have rules these days.
Well, what's crazy is to see that now I guess there's some states that are requiring licensing, which that, you know, I mean, that blows my mind. But
yeah.
You know, it's needed. It's like any industry that grows this fast. I mean, I'm starting to see some states leaning towards putting real estate wholesalers under some type of licensing or some type of, you know, larger level of accountability, which I can tell you, at least in the Austin market, that's desperately needed, because you've got guys and gals out here that are flipping contracts that have been assigned to them that the seller doesn't even know it's being wholesaled. And it's like, I don't know. It's just the saturation of any industry will always bring out the unsavvy and always bring out the unscrupulous. And so when you bring those two things into any given market, that said, and I know you and I talked about this, I can't wait for this $10 billion that B of A just put out there to default, so we can get back in there and start buying this stuff cheap again. I mean, this is a lifelong race. I've slowed down, as I discussed with you, on my purchases. We've slowed down on our hard money lending. We've slowed down on lots of stuff, and are really just happy to hold a lot of stuff we have right now for the yield, just because the margins have gone down. That said, you know, this is a marathon. The recession's coming, you know, and at least I believe it's coming. Is it going to be a year from now, 3 years from now? I don't know, but we're 10 years from the last one. So I'm looking forward to the prices going down, and I don't think it's going to be as catastrophic as it was the last time, but I can tell you, in the hard money space, the people that are old competitors, or the people that we would have to compete with now, are lending money so cheap and at such high loan to values and such high, loan to after repaired value, that when the market corrects, they're all going to go under. So the senior bank that they're actually getting their capital from is going to suck all that paper back up. They're going to have absolutely no interest in it, because you're going to have a bunch of houses that are halfway through being rehabbed, that the borrower can't get a draw on, that the facilitator of the actual hard money loan, the quote unquote bank, is really not the source of funds, whether they're using private money or they're using institutional, which they've got to be using institutional if they're lending money out at 8.5 at 100% of purchase price with no points, or the points rolled into the back. When that crashes, that's what I feel like that's the sector that I'll really gobble up, because we'll go out and recast those loans at 14, buy them at 60 cents, you know, and be all over it. So we'll see. I hate to leave church praying for a recession, but I would be lying. I'm still in the church parking lot, so I can't tell any lies right now without fear for my life. So
we got you cornered.
Yes, sir. Exactly.
Well, but you hit a couple points on the head. We're not trying to be the doom and gloomers out there. We're just trying to be, hey, you need to pay attention to this. These are they're clear signs that this is not good. I mean, it's good for if you're in the distress side because stuff's coming, but these are the same warning signs we had a decade ago. If you go back, history's repeating itself with things. You know, I jumped on Scotsman Guide a few minutes ago showing people, hey, these lenders doing 80, 90 cents of the dollar, you know, 500 FICOs, day out of foreclosure, okay, day out of bankruptcy, day out, you know, you can have a mortgage late in the last 12 months. That's just crazy but it's back. Everybody's getting greedy. You know, again, they want to, money's cheap right now. They can use it. They're just trying to create the stuff, package it off, sell it to somebody else, and walk away with their money. Well, that somebody else is at some point going to get stuck with it, and then they're going to have to move that stuff at a discount.
Well, and you know what happened last time, and obviously I got to see this so firsthand from being on the origination side of loans. And, you know, getting in at 98, where I think par on a 30-year fix for a fully documented, you know, A paper borrower was like 7.875 or 8.75 or something like that. And that was back when we were using fax blasting to find all of our leads. And this is, even really before the internet had taken, really taken hold, before LendingTree was even a source. As we grew that business over 10 years, it was almost like every day, which is an exaggeration and not to speak in absolutes, but the programs just got looser and looser. I mean, to the point to where we were doing, if you 650 FICO teacher, so you are on your VOE or you're on your application said I'm a school teacher, and we would have $3,600 a month in income and then $37,000 a month in tutoring, because the lenders didn't care, the underwriters didn't care. They'd sign off on anything if it hit the matrix on score. Everything else was not verified. I mean, back then, even no 4506s were required. So they couldn't even request anything on the backside of one of these loans from the IRS because they don't have the signed paperwork from a borrower to say, hey, now we want to post-closing vet whether or not this income that you stated, really meant anything. So, yeah, we should have seen it coming, but but we were making so much money that it was, those subprime are 100% financing on investment properties. Come on, man. But you can't, first time investor, 100% financing, no debt coverage, no 1.25 debt coverage of underwriting variable in it. I mean, you're basically telling people you're going to fail. You don't have any vettable reserves. Your down payment isn't sourced and seasoned. You don't really have good credit. You might not have bad credit, but you don't have good credit. Well, come on. I mean, that's like, kind of like when you get your 16-year-old their first car. Here's the deal. They're going to wreck it. They might not total it, but they're going to ding it. They're going to back into a pole. They're going to do something. So I don't get my kids brand new cars when they're 16 because I know they're going to tear them up. It doesn't matter how responsible they are, right? So when I see Bank of America releasing $10 billion to go out there as no income, no asset. And I haven't looked at the matrix, and I'm sure the credit score is probably relatively high, but man, you can spend $3 or $4 grand with one of these real high dollar credit repair places that even though the score might not stick, you give them 90 days to 6 months, they can get you to a 680 or a 700, even though if a couple months later, a bunch of that stuff's going to come back on, they can get some tax liens off and some stuff that's, pretty gnarly off. When they do that, your score goes up, it gets inflated, you get a no income, no asset loan, real high LTV, then all the junk comes back on. You can't refi then because all that junk's on it. You know what I mean? So it's just, I don't know, man. I think it's just right there. I could be wrong, but I'll tell you this, and we talked about this too. I feel like I borrow from, as most people do, smarter people than them as they form their opinions. My buddies in this business, some of the ones who have been in it since all the way back in the RTC days, some of the guys that I feel like really created this space, they're all they've been doom and glooming it for 18 months. I mean, some of the larger funds are selling their rental portfolios in Austin in blocks of 500. I saw a 1,200 property rental pool in Central Texas a week and a half ago that I did a little title research or a little tax research. This fund bought these things like in 2008. So they're going to kill it on it. But why would they be getting rid of it if they didn't think that there was about to be some type of negative play on their equity? They're not hurting for cash. I mean, at this time of the year, all those fund managers are doing their best to get as much money out of the bank as they possibly can. They typically don't want to sell anything at this time of the year. They want to get all the money spent. But, that's just what I think. And again, I hope for. That's what I hope for.
Well, I would agree with you there. When I start seeing some of these funds out there that have bought performing pools and they're selling them 6 months ago at 80, 75 cents on the dollar already, I'm like, wait a second, why are you selling out of this stuff that's your business model? Why are you taking a discount on that stuff? It believes that their people which are a lot smarter, a lot more highly educated than you and me combined, are looking at it in the future.
That's a great way to put it.
They got a lot smarter people. Their quants are looking at stuff like, the numbers say you got to be moving. You know what I mean? You got to be getting this stuff off your portfolio. Yeah. Jim Myers, I get a buddy. Fog this mirror approved.
Say what now?
Fog a mirror, you're approved.
I mean, bro, I mean, that's how it used to be. And when we were originating those loans, I don't know how much has changed on the origination side from what kind of yields they make on that stuff. But if the yields on that stuff is more than what the mortgage bankers and mortgage brokers can make on conventional, they're pushing everything towards that. So then the debt load or the need will go from conventional paper or FHA paper or 100% VA/HUD paper to then the banks are going to see, man, this 10 billion went away immediately. The default rates initially, because the velocity behind the money being borrowed is so fast that they don't have a chance to vet the default. So then they're like, well, God, we lent out this 10 billion right out of the gate. We need to release another, let's release, 100 billion. And then by the time the 100 billion is lent out, because the brokers and bankers are making another point on that stuff, so of course they direct their borrowers. I mean, it's been there, done that, man. Been there, done that. Made a ton of money doing that stuff. Lost a ton of money when it all went bad. I'm looking for, man. If it could be 2010 again, woo. And I had the ability to raise the kind of money that I can raise now versus back then when it was. Trying to raise $1 million was like, I mean, you remember, bro, I would blow the phone up and this is before I didn't know what self-directed 401k. I would have thought that was someone telling me a training program back from my power. I'd be like, self-directed 401k, is that a steroid or what exactly is that? I didn't know about that stuff at all. I still don't know that much about it, but I do know that there's a lot of people who tell me they have money parked and they are happier to pay the press than get into new deals unless the deals have legs on them that are 15-year deals that, especially on the performing thing, if they think their hedge is that the loan will continue to perform, then the recession is what it is. But what I think a lot of people don't think about on the performing side, whether they own paper or they own rentals, is when the market crashed, even people who were performing 100%, like the jingle keys thing, which a lot of people have never even heard of, but you'd be in your house, $450,000 mortgage loan with a PITI payment of $3,750. The market crashed, and then you could rent the house next door for $1,900. Well, why? A smart person would say, yeah, I'll take the foreclosure. I'll go live in this house for $1,900 on a 2-year lease. Over the 2-year period, I'm going to get my credit right back to where it was. And then I'll be able to buy something before the market. I could go back and buy the exact same house I was in. I don't have to move my kids out of the school district. Nothing changes for our family. We don't lose face in front of the community. We're just literally saving money. So you could take an otherwise performing loan or a great rental tenant, especially rental tenant, that when the market shifts, you have to know that there's a percentage of your performing base, rental or mortgage. In my opinion, there's going to be some that you would never think would default that are going to default simply because they can move down the road to a nicer, newer house for cheaper than what they're paying you.
Mm-hmm.
Because they don't really care. I mean, it happened. I mean, when the banks were getting mail with just keys in it and handwritten notes and security code is this, we're 3 doors down if you need us. But
yeah. I have seen files like that. I've had some files show up in portfolios where the keys were actually in the file folder that was sold off there. Our buddy Mark Highland says, hello, Scott and Doug.
Okay, so without Highland and Baldwin, I would have never, ever gotten. Mark, Mark, I don't know if you were here for the beginning of the call. The first pool that Sasha and I did that we closed, Mark brought us that deal and then found the buyer that bought the deal from us at the closing table. So, yeah. Oh, Mark Highland, man. Y'all want to know a gangster in this business? We're talking about one right now. That's for sure.
Such a small community, man. Still a small community.
It used to be. I tried to tell Clay Baldwin I was going to be doing this today so he could watch and make fun of me, but he's too busy in Thailand living the good life. So,
well, but there were loans I bought where the homeowner had done a cash out refi, pulled money out, kept it in their savings account, dragged out the foreclosure in the primary house, and then went and bought an REO that foreclosed for $500,000 scot-free you know, and let their primary house go to foreclosure. They didn't care. And I can understand that. You know, I met people in Miami like, oh yeah, I'm paying my attorney $1,500 a month to delay the foreclosure as long as possible. I know my mortgage payment is supposed to be like 10 grand. Screw it. I don't care. You know, that kind of stuff. We're going to see more of that stuff happen again.
Well, and especially when you talk, Miami's a good example. So Miami, obviously, when the crash happened, we used to see some crazy paper in Miami and in South Beach, like those high rises that had, you know, $2 million UPBs that the bank was selling for 6 cents or 7 cents. And it was just because, kind of like Austin, the values are just so, if the market supports the value, then the value is the value. That said, if you're building something for $100 a foot and you're selling it for $1,000 a foot, in the event of a crash, everything rolls pretty much back to what does it really cost to build this exact thing, right? So in Miami, yeah, you'd have guys that were living, or guys and gals that were living in, you know, $2 million high-rise condos, paying, you know, $15,000-$16,000 a month PITI, and then the crash happens and they could rent the exact same or a nicer unit further up for $6 grand a month. The recession didn't do anything to their income, right? They're still traders, or they're still attorneys, or whatever these high income people are out there. And why wouldn't you do it? Especially when you talk about having the model of doing it, because there was a lot of that. Do a cash out, first payment default on the cash out, or the ones that were real smart would make a payment or two on that cash out and then drag it out as long as they possibly could, maybe stay in the property for, and you know, back then you couldn't stay in properties as long as people have figured out how to stay in them now. That said, out there, someone could probably stick around if they had a decent attorney for 6 months?
6 to 12 months. You know,
you save close to $100,000 in payments that you don't have to make it all. You stay in your big place, and then you already have another place secured. Or, I mean, it's a pretty good hedge. It's not the dumbest thing. I mean, it's predatory from the reverse side. So instead of the lender being predatory to the borrower, it's the borrower flipping the script on them. But guess what? They're going to sue you? I mean, then you go BK and you're clear. So, I mean, who knows how much that stuff will happen. I just know that when you see Bank of America release all that, as soon as I hear no income, no asset, I'm like, run for the hills.
Yeah. Ninja loans are back.
I mean, but you know, it's like you said, this pressure. What happened last time, in my opinion, was there was so much international money, and the Fed was there was so much pressure on the banks to lend. Here, we'll give it to you almost for free. Just get it out. So what do? Well, you go back to your analysts and you ride them harder and harder to come up with new matrices, and then eventually they're just making things up. That's what I love about anytime someone asks me what I do for a living. I always like to tell them to go watch The Big Short, because even though those guys operate in a completely different, you know, spectrum than I do, it still gives someone a little bit of an understanding of why things crashed, and then at least it touches a little bit. You know, when Christian bails on his computer and it shows his screen a couple of times and you see it like a tape on there, and I tell people, I'm like, pause right there. That's what I do. Just not that many and not that cool. And my office isn't that big. And he's really rich. So, I mean, we'll see, man. But yeah, I mean, it's the beginning of the end. When's the end? I mean, from what I've been reading, the Fed's going to start, you know, raising the rate. And when I read an article the other day, I'm trying to think of who wrote it out. It was one of the big firms that was saying that the Fed will start to trickle the rate up until they push us into a mini recession at the very least. Because kind of like, if historically you go 10 years without some kind of recession, that you need a recession just to kind of, I don't know, cool the exhaust a little bit. I mean, it's, again, above my pay grade. The people that I hear this from, I'm regurgitating, and they have master's degrees or PhDs from blue chip schools in economics, and they've got teams of analysts and, you know, all that kind of stuff. And that's not me, but I've got enough of those people that I'm a phone call away from, that when I'm, you know, do my, hey, how's it going? You know, they're Chicken Little. Man, the sky's falling, run for cover. So we'll see.
One of the things I think there's an opportunity out there is kind of looking back at what's Fannie and Freddie have sold off, especially with Fannie selling off their large trades and Goldman Sachs gobbling everything up over the last couple years.
And when you saw everybody there was a lot of, maybe not a lot, but there was a handful of conversations on your Facebook page, on the WCN page, about that big Freddie trade that just happened. And I guess it was an NPN trade, right? And people were marveling at the pricing. I look at that with a really skeptical eye. Like, look, in my experience, anytime we used to get even close like that, the biggest trade I ever did was a cutoff of a cutoff of a cutoff of a big trade, right? Like, we were probably maybe, it was several hundred loans, but that probably came from a pool that was like, the big fund bought it. It was 2,500 loans. And they trimmed that into, 5, whatever. It was 5,000 loans, and they cut that into 5 1,000 loan pools, and so on and so forth. And eventually it got to guys like me that then we cut it into 10 loan pools, and whatever. Those funds, I'm not sure, I don't know who bought it, but whoever bought it, they got big money, they got long money, they have, but they also could be completely wrong, and that trade could be what turns them into the next Lehman Brothers. I mean, think about it. I mean, when the crash happened last time, somebody would have told me in 2007, oh, Countrywide's going to go out of business. I'd have been like, good God, let's go. I'll give you odds on that bet all day long. And look what happened. Same with Lehman Brothers. I mean, are you kidding me? Those are institutions, but it happens. So when I see a trade like that, and I see so many people questioning, like, how in the world could they pay this much? That's also when I step back and I'm like, man, the model's, maybe the model's changing outside of my comfort level. When you see funds that big paying that much, and I can't within 10 seconds explain to someone, here's exactly why. And I know there's some explanations, but even when I give some explanations, I'll see myself typing something out in a response on your page, and then I read it and I'm like, dude, this is like a canned delete. I'm like, maybe I'm missing something here,
So I'm a big believer. I mean, if you look at what Goldman Sachs did, because Goldman Sachs has bought basically the last 7 or 8 trades, and they've paid through the nose, overpriced it. They have cheap money, first and foremost. They also have a special deal that for every dollar they forgive in loan mods, it goes dollar for dollar discount against the $1 billion fine they got against the SEC. Okay? So they can take a little bit loss, but the fact that they paid too much and the market change goes south, they're going to have to forgive a lot of stuff and then be looking to sell a lot of stuff off. Yeah, they may make a big chunk of the money, but the minute they get that $1 billion fine paid off, they're going to be looking to drop some stuff, discount it, and get ready to move on to it to another level because they've got cheap money at 0.1%. They're raising capital at very cheap prices.
Yeah. Yeah, and then you make a great point, and that's the whole thing. The complexity of their level really doesn't have any relation to us, because for me, my cost of capital is real simple. Did I get it from a bank or did I get it from a person? If I got it from a bank, I'm paying X. If I got it from a person, I'm paying X. Is what it is. No amount of anything is going to do anything other than drive my cost of capital up if I don't perform the way I said I was going to perform. If I tell a guy or a gal, hey, I'm gonna need $1 million and I'll have it back to you in 3 years and I'll pay you 8 pref during those 3 years, and I get to the end of that 3rd year and I haven't waterfalled it properly, and then all of a sudden the pref goes from 8 to 12 or 13 and I was only making 13, gross on the deal, and then I get, what I mean? And then we've got some we need to foreclose on and rehab or whatever, but we can't go raise more money. So we have to take every penny that we've made on that deal to date and then money of our own, what I mean? It's when you're using other people's money, it's completely different than what the people at the large fund level, when they get to that point, they're making decisions from the screen of their computer. It's not like they're ever like hopping on a plane and flying to Gary, Indiana. You know what I mean? Like I've never seen them there. They're not going to Gastonia to
North Carolina.
Go figure out why the property manager keeps supposedly losing new air conditioners. You know what I mean? Like it's a different ball game, but it's still scary to me, and especially when they're getting those kind of tax credits or they're getting that kind of benefit from the government for, I mean, how can you even quantify? I don't have that column in my spreadsheet, brother. I don't have it. Mine ain't that long. Money in, money out, cost of capital, done. A few variance models in there. That's
it. Let's see here. Yeah, a lot of people. We got somebody there in the Chicago area has been selling for the last 2 years, sitting on $3 billion in cash, waiting for a downturn. Thanks, Rich. Yeah, we'll give him a phone call here in a few months, hopefully.
Yeah, well, since Rich brought that up during my portion of this podcast, I'm going to go, or this seminar, I'm going to make sure I'd like first right of refusal on helping replace that $3 billion. Or we can set up, the three of us offline today can set up a syndication. I can have some syndication documents drawn up today and get those docu-signed over to y'all. Highland, if you're still listening, you'll get in on this deal too, brother.
That's how it works. That's how it works. A few phone calls. Good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I've had people in Austin. When I start getting calls from investors in Austin who I have shown DSRE, we don't do a lot of stuff locally. We maybe flip. I bet you in the last 5 years, we probably have flipped 30 houses in the Austin area, most of which we created. We'd buy them, rehab them, and then create our own paper and sell them with owner financing. Some of them we would just flip. But our concentration of our business has always been, all these lower end markets like Gary, Indiana, like Gastonia, North Carolina, just lots of places like that. How you bought stuff all over the place. It was really, really hard to raise. It was really, really hard to raise money from people in Austin who are such elitists about how precious the real estate is in Austin. So I'd take a deal that was a 45 yield in and out in 9 months with a 50-50 split to the capital partner, and with a pref, not on top of, but a pref during the term, and then a 50-50 split at the end with their pref that's already been paid pulled out of their side. Solid deals. And they were, and we did them all, and they all worked exactly how we wanted them to work. But I'd get calls like this, Gary, Indiana? Why would we want it? And I'm like, because we can't buy houses for $14,000 in Austin that are worth $35,000, or that we could buy a house in Gastonia for $9,000 that's rented for $550. Come on. I mean, let's get on. Like, now I have people calling me saying, hey, you got any of those weird, as they say, you got any of those crappy deals that, that like tatting, but you got any stuff in Detroit? I mean, remember showing capital partners the very first portfolios that we would see, and it would be like so much Detroit and just so much Michigan. And then you and I flipped a lot of that stuff. And then I remember like a couple years ago when I saw you, and you were saying something to me about, I think it was when we went up to Dallas, and you were doing, when I went up to go to that little Quest thing, and you said something about, dude, don't you wish we still had all those Detroit loans that we bought for like 10 cents or something like that? And I was like, no. And you were like, yeah, dude, the market's rebounded. It's not, we didn't hedge what was really going to happen with the market. But I'm getting phone calls from guys going, hey, I've got $7 million I need to place by the end of the year. When they're calling someone all the way down at my level with placement calls, I mean, I'm like, and I just tell them, I'm like, I don't see anything that would fit. I ask, well, what's the guidelines? What would I have to underwrite it to? And blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. But I'm not finding stuff that can hit the kind of caps they want to hit when they start to throw in the multipliers for return based on demographics and size of community and class of neighborhood and so on and so forth. Plus, I'm not seeing a lot of portfolios that are in the, you know how it goes. Anything between 5 million and 25 million, it's like there's nothing there, And even I'm not even seeing a lot of stuff over $1 million right now. Yeah. I'm not even really seeing that much stuff because I think everyone's figured out that. I mean, I say the same thing to everybody. If your prices go down, I want to buy stuff, but if this is the pricing that you really think is legit, I got a bunch of stuff I want to sell you.
Yeah, that's the truth, brother.
Yeah,
that's the truth. Do you have any questions for Doug here before we let him get back to his Sunday afternoon there? Let him get home, get a little lunch in him. You get the kids this weekend?
Yeah. No. Oldest boy comes home from college on the 21st. I'm sure my 18-year-old is still in bed, and the girls are with their mama.
There you go. Good stuff there. Charles Wilson, I have some properties in Detroit to sell. I don't know, Charles.
Well, Charles, if you can sell them for 10 cents on the unpaid balance so I can reap all the reward, I would like jump all over them. I just meant that we used to have a lot of notes there that we would flip and feel real good that we were flipping, because the last thing we wanted was to foreclose and have an REO in Detroit, and we were wrong. That's all there is to it. You know, one of the things I've learned is people live everywhere, and everywhere people need to pay their bills. People need a roof over their head. You know, foreclosure laws are crazy. You know, eviction's even harder. You know, getting people out of your houses is tough. All that stuff's tough. But most people try their very best to keep a roof over their head without the loom of, oh, I'm going to lose my house any day, any week, any month. You know what I mean? Most people don't want to wake up every day knowing that they're running from their landlord or running from their mortgage company. Granted, in our business, we come across a lot of people like that. But that said, man, I mean, I have a lot of belief that the American dream is to not be getting phone calls from your bank, your landlord, the car payment people, the credit card people. You know, if I could quit getting robocalls every day for either that I won something for Marriott, or we're calling about the warranty on your car, or American Express calling me. I don't have an American Express card. I get enough of those calls. So, or
the Blue Cross Blue Shield insurance guys. That's what I get bombarded with.
Yeah, I mean, no. I wish I could put up a screenshot of how many phone numbers I have blocked on my phone. I'm just glad that we can easily block numbers now, and how they get a new number the next day or later that day, you get the same call. But what are you going to do?
Yeah, exactly.
That's
well, hey, Doug, I'm going to let you get back
That's not that bad of a problem.
No.
All right.
Hey, man, thanks so much for taking time on your Sunday schedule. Really, really appreciate it, Doug. I know everybody here, we got a lot of people enjoying it as well. We'll be in touch some more this next week or so. And if I don't, have a happy Thanksgiving, all right, bro?
Yeah, bro, for sure. And don't forget, we have a follow-up conversation about my new concept. Don't forget about that, big boy.
We'll talk 1st of December. We'll talk 1st of December.
I'd have brought it up. But I didn't want you to get mad at me. All right, bro, man. I'll talk to you soon.
I mean, no mad at all, brother. We'll see you later.
All right, bye.
All right, guys, that is going to wrap it up for just this little session there. Unless you guys have some questions you want to bring up. I mean, Doug and I've known each other like about since 2010. One of the guys I brought a few first of my assets from, actually, back in the day. Broke them from stuff from those Wells Fargo stuff that was selling off, Wells Fargo Financial, some other things. Doug is a character. That's why I love him, man. But if you're coming to the mastermind in Austin in April, we're probably going to have Doug come out and hang out with us for a day or two, and just have a good time to hang out as well. But let's take a quick 5-minute break to give me a chance to pull up another different PowerPoint as we dive in a little bit on some of the funding side of things, and we'll go from there. All right, so be back in 5 minutes.